Hello, this is Alan Prescott.
Hello, this is Jean Colbert.
Having enlightened you with those two astounding facts, let's go a little further.
Sure, we want to go a little further and talk about the most popular girl in the world.
We were out to see her the other day. You can go, too, if you like.
What we have in mind, in case it's a little early for you to catch quickly, is the Statue of Liberty.
In the first place, let's get her name straight. The lady's proper name is the Statue of Liberty Enlightening the World.
How'd you learn that?
Well, I just read books all the time.
And this liberty was given to the American people by the people of the Republic of France as a symbol of the alliance of the two nations. See how much I know.
Oh, sure. Some symbol, by the way. Miss Liberty weighs 225 tons.
Now, there's a girl who never worried about her diet.
And in case you want to ask her to dance, she stands 300 feet 10 inches above sea level. Very bad for the Roomba.
Now, don't overdo it, Alan. Miss Liberty is only 152 feet high, and all the rest of her goes into her foundation and part of the island that she stands on.
Still tough on the Roomba.
Getting your arm around Miss Liberty would be quite a problem because she's 35 feet around her waist.
No, thick at the waist.
Oh, thick at the waist. How do you know?
Well, I'm looking at the same paper. It says so right here.
And her head is 10 feet thick from ear to ear, and her mouth is 3 feet wide. I thought maybe you'd try.
No, indeed. I'll reach a long way, but not that far. That's not a very flattering description of a girl, but in days when they built Miss Liberty, they built girls to last. Now, seriously, even if you're a native New Yorker, you should make a trip out to the Statue of Liberty. You can go out there and back in surprisingly little time.
Why, sure, it only takes 45 minutes for the round trip from the Battery, and you should allow yourself about an hour to sightsee around the statue.
Oh, and right here, there's a rumor we'd like to scotch, too. It's been erroneously reported that the arm of the Statue of Liberty is closed because it's been condemned for structural reasons. That ain't true. They told us out there that the reason Miss Liberty's arm can't be climbed into is, in the first place, it's rude, and in the second place, you have to go up a 40-foot ladder.
And if you've ever tried to pass anybody in the middle of a 40-foot ladder, why, you know that it has nothing to do with the love of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
We brought all this up about the Statue of Liberty because it was just about a year ago that the old girl was lit up again.
I think Alan puts that rather bluntly. Miss Liberty was lit with electric lights and not 2 or 3 barrels of champagne, as you might suppose. Incidentally, Samuel Hibben, the Westinghouse director of applied lighting, who had the rather large problem of getting Miss Liberty lit, ran into an awful lot of obstacles.
One of them was a 60-mile-an-hour wind which blows around the torch, and then the terrific heat created by the cluster of lamps within the unventilated torch is quite a problem, too.
In other words, it wasn't as simple as lighting up Junior's Christmas tree.
The reason we tossed all this in your direction is that we think a visit to America's most famous statue is worth your while.
Did you know that in 1945, 500,000 people thought it was worthwhile to go and see it?
Gene, I kept thinking when we were out there about the last time I visited the Statue of Liberty. You know, some time ago I had a summer job, and Saturdays off were very precious. But I had a little cousin come to visit me from Springfield, Massachusetts.
Oh, how nice.
Well, yes, I thought so, too. My mother pointed out that I was duty-bound to entertain the little girl, and ducking the job herself, she made me take my little cousin out to the Statue of Liberty. It was an awful chore, but I went through it with grim cheerfulness.
Well, did your cousin like it?
Well, that's the point. After I dragged her out to the Statue of Liberty and dragged her back, I finally said to her, "Well, Janet, how did you like the Statue of Liberty?" And she said, "Oh, I think it's all right, but it ought to be in Springfield, Massachusetts."
I have a Statue of Liberty story, too. Years and years ago, a long, long time ago, when I was 5 years old.
Oh, it's not that bad now, come.
I had the whooping cough. And at that time, there was a superstition that if you took a sea voyage, you'd get rid of the whooping cough.
I never heard of anything like that. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. So my mother took my twin brother and myself, we both had it, on a daily visit to the Statue of Liberty for 6 weeks. The caretaker couldn't figure the thing out, and he finally reported us as suspicious characters.
I would love to have heard your mother try and get away with an explanation for what she was doing.
You don't know my mother. I'm sure she convinced the attendant so that he wanted to sell extra tickets to whooping cough patients.
You know, Gene, outside the Statue of Liberty, I didn't mean to rush in and change the subject that fast. I thought that was very funny, Gene.
You didn't?
I liked that whole thing, yeah. Gene, outside the Statue of Liberty, I think one of the most astounding sights in New York is the gardens here at Rockefeller Center.
So do I.
Isn't it wonderful in the middle of a great big city? You can come out and look at all those beautiful flowers. And the thing that's always struck me as perfectly amazing about this garden.
Well, they are perfectly amazing.
No, you know what's surprising? Nobody ever seems to swipe the flowers. I think that's pretty wonderful.
I do, too, and in a town where you're told to keep off the grass or not to walk on the certain side of the street, they don't find it necessary in Rockefeller Center to put one keep-off sign.
Did you notice this morning the Easter lilies are in? What'd they do with all those tulips?
The tulips.
Oh, tulips, I said, didn't I? Tulips.
Tulips. Well, don't you know what they do with the tulips?
No.
The gardener, Mr. Vanderhoek,
Mr. Vanderhoek?
Should we spell it?
Yeah, how do you spell her name?
Vanden, capital Hoek, Vanderhoek.
Honestly, Jane's
Dutch.
so remarkable. She knows how to pronounce all the languages. She
can
pronounces
read.
French very good, too.
Oh, oui. Well, Mr. Vanderhoek told me that they take the tulips up and they dry them, and then they replant them on the roofs of Rockefeller Center.
Oh.
Say, Alan, how many tulips do you think there are around Rockefeller Center?
Let me see, about a dozen.
Oh, you're almost right. There were 6,000 tulips.
That was a good guess, wasn't it?
Say, I want to talk about what everybody's going to see in those gardens tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
There are more than 1,000 white Easter lilies. They have on them from 5 to 8 full-blooming blossoms. Now, let me see, that's about 8,000 lilies.
Well, perhaps 8,004.
You can have the extra 4 lilies.
Oh, thank you. Most generous. Thank you very much.
Not only are there flowers, but there are going to be big doings on tomorrow. The Rockefeller Center choristers.
What are choristers?
Choristers? Don't you know what choristers are?
No.
Choristers are people who sing.
Oh, yes.
Anyway, the Rockefeller Center choristers, 165 men and women employed at the center, are going to sing at the United Easter Dawn service, sponsored by the Greater New York Federation of Churches, at the Radio City Music Hall.
What time's that?
At 7 o'clock on Easter morning.
Oh, that's definitely a dawn service, isn't it? Jean, let's buy Rockefeller Center.
Okay. It only cost $59.5 million to build, but I suppose we could get some of that knocked off because it's used now.
I've never gotten over the feeling of wonder about Rockefeller Center. Do you know, Jean, that the rentable area, all the area they can rent, in Rockefeller Center, would triple-deck Fifth Avenue from Washington Square to 120th Street?
Well, do you think it's going to lie down?
Well, not for a minute, anyway. Oh, here's another fact that may astonish you. The steam used annually in Rockefeller Center would heat 2,000 six-room houses for a year.
2,000 six-room houses?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, now you're just showing off. Say, I know a few things about the place myself. Did you know that the Center Theater has the world's largest chandelier?
How big is it?
20 feet in diameter, and the chandelier weighs over 6 tons. You needn't worry about the center sinking into the ground, either.
Thinking, why not?
Well, because the buildings in Rockefeller Center are 400,000 tons lighter in weight than the rock and the earth that they took out when they built the center. See?
I think that's a very interesting thing. I've always worried about that. I thought they kind of loaded the earth down when they put up all this structure. You know, Jean, I think that all this knowledge packed in your fluffy little head would make you dizzy.
Oh, I have more if you like it.
Oh, let me buy the property and go over it at my own convenience.
Say, Alan, do you know that the Milkmaid Company and only Milkmaid uses real honest-to-goodness, pasteurized cow's milk and cream in beauty preparations without having it turn rancid and without it losing its potency? Did you know that?
How'd we get into this?
Well, nothing like this has ever happened to your skin.
Nothing's happened to mine as far as I can see. It's right there on my face.
All this is for girls.
Oh.
Alan, you look at the packages while I talk about Milkmaid.
All right.
Milkmaid cleansing milk does new things to your skin. It's made from 80% pasteurized milk. Just imagine that, 80%
Very pretty
pasteurized
package.
milk.
I like this thing.
You just smooth it on, you rinse it off, and your face feels tingly clean.
It gives it that tingle, Here's some stuff in a bottle. What's this stuff?
Oh, that's the next thing you use. That's Milkmaid Emotion.
It is?
Sure it is. And after you use the cleansing milk, you soften and protect your skin with Milkmaid Emotion.
I do?
Why, certainly. Milkmaid Emotion absorbs quickly and leaves an exquisite base for makeup. It's a grand powder foundation.
Smells good.
Just
Thank
the
you.
right touch, too. And when you use these preparations, take a look in your mirror and then see what a beautiful difference in your skin. It looks fresh, it looks alive, it glows.
Oh, glow on.
The one thing you probably wouldn't know about, Alan, and I do because, from my own experience, it's the new kind of skin feeling and the new beauty satisfaction that these Milkmaid products give a woman.
That's why we're pleased to have Milkmaid as one of our sponsors. As our sponsor, period.
As our sponsor. After using Milkmaid on your skin, your complexion has that well-scrubbed, clean feeling with that appealing and delightful glow that comes from deep down skin cleanliness.
Nothing like this has ever happened to your skin. Gene, did you say where to get it?
I didn't, but I am going to now.
Oh.
Milkmaid preparations are sold at Bonwit Teller, Saks Fifth Avenue, Lord & Taylor, and at McQuarrie's. As a matter of fact, you can get Milkmaid at better department stores and specialty stores.
There we are. Oh, Gene, wait a second. Here's a jolly little bit that was sent in. Listen to this. It begins with the title, Let's Get Better Acquainted with Beets. Beets are a jolly vegetable.
I don't believe it. Now let me see that.
Uh,
It does. It says exactly that. Not only that, but it says, beets are a member of the goosefoot family.
Is that good?
Well, it must be, because the goosefoot family includes chard, spinach, and other distinguished vegetables.
If they're so distinguished, why do they have such a silly name?
Well, it says right here that these vegetables are called goosefoot from the shape of their leaves.
I can't wait to face my next spinach leaf to see if it's goosefoot shaped.
Here's something else that I'm fairly happy about.
Yeah.
Do you know, Alan, that mushrooms are the sitting down member of the vegetable family?
Well, it's not one of the things I have tattooed on my right arm, but what brought it up?
This note I have here says that the mushroom is always round-shouldered and hunched over, and an example to all other members of the vegetable family of what can happen when one spends one days with a droopy outlook on life.
With a comment like that, any self-respecting mushroom could sue for libel.
Oh, no. They cover themselves right there.
Yeah,
They ramble on to say, and I quote,
yeah.
though mushrooms may be round-shouldered, they're no slouch when it comes to flavor.
This is making me ill.
It is? Well, wait till you hear this one.
Yeah.
Here's another quote. The mushroom makes a queenly thing of a rather dull idea.
I'm glad, aren't you?
Oh, yes, I'm tickled.
Well, what other fascinating topic have you?
Celery, you know, belongs to the parsley family, and it's a cousin to carrots and parsnips.
Jane, stop playing with your food. Let's talk about something else.
Okay, I'd like to talk about the exhibit of the photographs at the Camera Club.
Oh, yes, that's the thing you went to the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Before we tell about that, Gene, tell what the Camera Club is, you know.
Well, the Camera Club is the oldest incorporated organization of amateur photographers in America. It has one of the largest photographic libraries in America. And ever since 1884, the Camera Club has been a meeting place of people who are camera crazy and film crazy.
Did you see a lot of pictures up there?
Why, yes, I did. There's an exhibition of photographs by W. Eugene Smith.
W. Eugene Smith. Who's he?
Oh, Alan, W. Eugene Smith? Why,
Definitely.
he's that wonderful life photographer who took so many magnificent war pictures in the Pacific, remember?
Oh, yes, all those wonderful pictures in life. Well, I guess he didn't take them all, but he took a lot of those pictures in life.
The exhibition is really a joint exhibition with his mother, Nettie Lee Smith. Oh, incidentally, Mrs. Smith, his mother, does all of Gene Smith's processing, developing, and printing.
Well, what were the pictures about, Gene? Were they war pictures, all of them?
First of all, there were some excellent pictures of well-known people. There's a swell action picture of Betty Hutton, and there's some pictures of Hazel Scott and Vincent Price, the movie actor, and one of Paul Robeson.
Oh, yes. You mean they're all portraits?
No. Practically none of the pictures were posed for. For instance, there's one of Wendell Willkie asleep on a couch.
Huh. What else did you say, Jane?
I saw those war pictures, and they were simply marvelous.
Oh, these are the ones he took out in the Pacific,
Mhm.
Mr. Smith.
There's one of Lou Ayres and a wounded Filipino guerrilla. And then there are beautiful pattern shots showing tracers and bursts of anti-aircraft shells over Okinawa at night. And I saw an impressive and simple photograph of the grave of a U.S. Marine at Saipan. Really, there's so many pictures to tell you about. I think you should go to the exhibition and see it for yourself.
Well, what about the photographs that Mrs. Smith made? We haven't said anything about those.
Me, Mama?
Yeah, Mama.
Well, they were charming. I think that women would particularly like them. The man who showed me around told me that a special interest is shown in one called Gene Sourpuss.
Gene Sourpuss. What does that mean?
That's what Mama calls her son, Sourpuss.
Oh, it's a photograph of Gene himself?
Uh-huh. It's awfully cute,
When he was
too.
a youngster?
No, taken about a year ago.
Oh, I see.
He has a kind of a pout.
Oh.
And then there's one of Mrs. Smith's daughter and her granddaughter sitting together in a bathtub.
That's clubby, isn't it?
Chummy.
Yeah.
I really urge anybody who's really interested in photography to go to see this exhibition. Oh, by the way, I've already mentioned the man who showed me around.
Oh, yes. Who was he?
Well, he was so nice to me,
Uh-huh.
and he knew so much about photography that I made some remarks about that fact, that he seemed to know a lot about it.
Yeah.
And then he told me that, he had a little experience. And then he showed me 5 volumes that he had written on photography.
I think that's quite a bit of experience.
And guess who he was?
Oh.
He was Mr. Henry C. Gibson, well-known author and photographer, especially famous for his South American pictures. See, you think I ought to give that address?
Yes, give the address. We intended to mention it in the beginning, but I don't think we did. Where is the exhibition at the Camera Club?
The exhibition is at 121 West 68th Street. It doesn't cost anything to see it, and the exhibit only lasts until April 30th.
April 30th. Mm-hmm. What's the date today? I'm all confused.
What is today?
What's today? The 20th.
Dick Charles says it's the 20th.
20th. It's the 20th. I'm glad we got that straightened out. And it's Saturday. I'll remember that all day now. Look, Gene, It's almost Easter, by the way, and we haven't said a word about women's hats or what people are going to wear and that kind of thing. I have a hat story if you'd like to hear it.
What hat story?
Well, there's a friend of mine here in New York who's made it a custom every Easter to buy his sister a hat. He doesn't know much about hats, but...
Well, his sister must trust him.
Well, she does, but my friend knows about what kind of things she'd wear. She lives down in Virginia, by the way. And when he goes to buy a hat, he usually gets a lot of help from the milliner, one of the girls around there. And I'm afraid this good deed, though, has struck a snag. This year he went to buy the usual hat, and at the suggestion of the milliner, he had a few changes put on it. I don't know, he changed the ribbon or put a feather here or something. But he had a few changes put on. He paid for the hat, and he left word to have it sent to his address. Well, when he got home the other night, his houseboy, a very solemn little Chinaman, approached him with some indignation and said, "Lady called, say she was your milliner." I say, "Don't be silly. My boss no wear hat."
Say, that reminds me. I want to talk about fashion.
There we go. I didn't mean to start that, boys.
Well, I think this is really interesting. It's about the new plastic film or material called Cinderlite. And Cinderlite pretty soon will be made up in slip covers for chairs and window drapes and dressing table covers, as well as raincoats, aprons, and housecoats.
Well, what's so different about the new plastic thing?
Well, it's the first time that a plastic film or material has been made that feels warm when you touch it.
Oh, I'm glad of that, because I've been frightened to death by a cold shower curtain too many times.
Well, this plastic film is printed, and it comes in different colors, and it seems to me that it looked more like a delicate material than any plastic I've seen. For instance, one of the models paraded around in a beautiful white lace plastic cocktail apron.
Well, what was it, simple, or was it kind of...
It was lacy looking.
Oh.
And then some of the other girls wore plastic quilted robes.
Well, are there any other different qualities that recommend this, what's the name of it, Cinderlite?
Cinderlite.
Cinderlite.
They told me that Cinderlite, that's what it's known as, withstands grease and chemical stains. It has no odor, it has no taste, and besides this, it's waterproof and mildew-proof.
I'm glad about not having any taste. People chew on their sleeves and all that sort of thing. Tell me, are the articles made out of this very expensive, Gene?
No, not very expensive. They haven't exactly come on the market, but you'll be seeing them shortly. You'll be seeing everything from shower and window curtains to evening coats made out of Cinderlite. Scintillating.
Scintillating, yes, indeed.
Smart,
I wonder what they'll think of next.
Say they've thought of a fountain pen that writes for 4 years without being filled.
I don't want to hear about that. I enjoy filling my fountain pen. It gives me something to do when I'm not filing my nails. I also enjoy that.
Say, Alan, have you heard about the cadoozle?
Gene, sometimes I worry about you a little. Cadoozle? What did you say?
Cadoozle.
The cadoozle. What's the cadoozle?
Well, the cadoozle is a new way to market. It's a new automatic food store. It's patented after the assembly line method that American manufacturers devised to reduce cost and increase their production.
Oh, I know what you mean. It's one of those stores where all the merchandise is behind glass and you have a key with a perforated tape in it.
That's right. It's something like a music roll for a player piano. You insert your key in a slot under lettuce and grapefruit and meat or whatever else you want to buy.
Yeah, even lemons and oranges.
And then you hand your key to the clerk who plays back the tape.
And with that, believe us or not, all your purchases come rolling down a moving belt and your bill is automatically added. Gene, I bet this would be a new way to end it all. We'll hear about some poor character who tried to add his bill as fast as the cadoozle, I can't say that today, as the cadoozle did, and then by diving into the cadoozle belt with a can of tomatoes in each hand. Cadoozle, what a name.
Well, what would you call a thing like that?
I don't think I'd like to think about it.
Well, the other name that the inventor of the cadoozle thought of was the Piggly Wiggly.
Piggly Wiggly?
Piggly Wigglies are all over the South.
Oh, I know. We've had some trouble at my apartment, too, but the man came put some powder around. Now it's all right.
Oh, Alan, we haven't said anything about headquarters.
Headquarters?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean?
You know the restaurant that's run by Johnny Schwartz and Marty Snyder?
Oh, yes, those are the two returned veterans who, when they were in service, cooked for everybody, including the Queen Mother of England and Al Jolson, with no stops between.
That's right. They were the cooks for General Eisenhower, you know.
Oh, yes, I heard the general stopped in to take a look at the place after the boys went into business.
He probably wanted to see if they had lamb stew. You know the lamb stew story, don't you?
No. Oh, yes, tell them about that, Gene. That's an amusing story.
Well, when the boys were cooks for General Eisenhower, he came back to France after a flying trip to London. And then when he saw the boys back at his headquarters, he raved about the lamb stew that Mr. Churchill had served him. The boys felt that they weren't going to be outdone by anybody, so they put out a lamb stew the next day themselves. And when the general wanted to know how they knew that he liked lamb stew, the boys spoke up and said that that was one military secret that General Eisenhower had let out after his conference in London. So now lamb stew is one of the specialties at headquarters.
You know, I understand the place is practically the crossroads of the world, in that if you're looking for an ex-GI pal or some guy you had a drink with in Timbuktu, you'll probably find him at headquarters.
Oh, it's practically loaded with generals.
All the more reason for going, boys. If you'd like to see a general when you don't have to stand up, sit down at headquarters and watch him mull through his lamb stew.
Well, Alan, the way you go on, you think they don't have anything but lamb stew. They have lots of other good American food and French dishes, and I really think it would be worth your while to see how these two veterans are getting along, how they're making out.
Yeah, if you want to check in at headquarters, it's over at 108 West 49th Street. Now, so much for that. Gene, I want you to tell the oboe story.
Well, once I was lucky enough to have an apartment.
This is the one about the musician now.
About the musician?
Yeah.
The oboe player.
That's right, yeah.
But my across-the-court neighbor, Mr. X, used to keep me awake every morning by playing the oboe.
We call him Mr. X because he really exists, and he's very famous, so we decided we better hadn't do anything but just call him Mr. X. This man really exists. Go on, Gene, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Mr. X would start practicing the oboe at 5 o'clock in the morning. I finally complained to the owners of the building, and they said they would have to do something about it. Well, I sent in a letter, and I received a very snippy letter. They informed me that I had no right to complain, that I should consider it a privilege to hear the most famous oboe player in the world, no matter what time in the morning, and if I didn't like music at 5 in the morning, I knew what I could do.
How do you like that?
So I made up my mind that there would come a day when Mr. X and I would meet. Shortly afterwards, I was leaving the house, and I was followed by a man carrying a little black case. I turned and said, "Now look here, Mr. X, I said there would be a day. You've just got to stop that oboe playing."
Shrill, ain't she?
His attempt to interrupt me got no further than, "But, madam, but, madam." And then I continued, "Now, don't madam me. You've kept me awake for 6 months. I'm on the verge of a nervous breakdown. I know you're the greatest oboe player in the world, but I still have to sleep." And while I caught my breath, my antagonist slipped in a thought. "Madam, what do you think I do?" he said. And I continued to go on. "I know what you do, and you've got to stop it." And he said, "But, madam, I make glow lights for Christmas trees. I was just up to see if Mr. X would buy some. I don't play the oboe."
Hey, Gene, I think that's a very amusing story. Gene, hurry up because we're going down to meet Don McNeil. Oh, boys and girls, Don McNeil's coming in from Chicago on the Century, and he's going to broadcast that Breakfast Club from Madison Square Garden tomorrow. We're going down to meet him.
Oh, and I want to remind the girls about Milkmaid beauty preparations. When you use Milkmaid, nothing like that has ever happened to your skin. It's wonderful.
There we are, Gene. It's about that time. Get
Oh, it
your
is?
things. Yeah.
Well, this is Jean Colbert.
Well, this is Alan Prescott. Listen again next Saturday at 8:30, and we'll bring you some more news and chatter about old New York. I've got the door open,
Well,
Gene. Don't
shut
always
me,
fool
I'll
with
fall
your
on my
hat. It
face.
takes you so long to get a bag packed. Ramping at the corner.
WJZ, New York.